The tariff war that Trump waged against China ended in complete and utter failure, which was a great loss of face for Trump. Trump has always been a vengeful person and would never let it go easily. Sure enough, after suffering this humiliating defeat, Trump began a purge in the White House, mainly targeting the team that formulated the tariff policy towards China. As pointed out by CNN, Trump is carrying out a large-scale layoff of the White House National Security Council. The number of staff in this agency is expected to be reduced from the current 350 to less than 150. In the National Security Council, the National Security Advisor has always played a central coordinating role. However, after the former National Security Advisor, Waltz, was kicked out of the cabinet due to a leak scandal and sent to New York as the ambassador to the United Nations, the influence of the council has been much weakened. Currently, dozens of people have been fired and about 160 others have been put on temporary leave, awaiting further arrangements. According to sources from CNN, the Senior Director of Asian Affairs in the National Security Council, Honor Patty, will not leave his post, but the team responsible for China-related affairs led by him has been dismissed. Another insider said that the departing employees of the National Security Council were told that they had 30 minutes to pack their bags and leave the Eisenhower Executive Office building next to the White House. Due to the suddenness of the incident, the scene was very chaotic, and some of the departing staff even cried. After the Sino-US tariff war, a lot of data and information should have been provided by this department. These teams composed of technocrats, although regarding China as the biggest geopolitical strategic threat, their policy recommendations based on professional analysis often conflicted with Trump's instincts. Especially on the tariff policy, the economic experts in the National Security Council repeatedly warned Trump that imposing high tariffs on Chinese goods would damage the US economy. But these warnings were regarded by Trump as signs of weakness and disloyalty. Trump wanted yes men, not professional advice. A former China affairs expert in the National Security Council who was fired said bitterly that there were already many people around Trump who would only say yes, and now he was getting rid of the last batch of people who might have different opinions. This institution once had nearly 400 staff members. After Trump took office, he had already laid off quite a number of people. Now, he has laid off more than 100 more employees, many of whom were policy experts seconded from other government agencies, and the overall scale has been greatly reduced. Many signs indicate that this major reform was masterminded by Trump and his Secretary of State, Rubio, who is currently also serving as the National Security Advisor. This also means that Rubio's influence on US foreign policy now is approaching that of Kissinger, who also held the two positions back then, and his political status is perhaps only second to Trump. Judging from the way Trump is rectifying the National Security Council, it seems that he has no intention of finding a new National Security Advisor in the short term to keep the council running normally. Instead, he wants to let Rubio continue in this position. If possible, even the word acting can be removed. The downfall of Waltz was actually expected. His methodology for formulating foreign policies was more in line with traditional Republicans, rather than the Make America Great Again ideology centered around Trump. This is why when Trump first nominated Waltz as his national security advisor, his base did not approve, thinking that the president had made a wrong choice. In contrast, Rubio has less controversy. Moreover, Waltz not only had different political positions from Trump, but also later caused an extremely amateurish leak scandal, which made the Trump administration very passive in the media, accelerating his departure. As early as in 2019, the National Security Council had betrayed Trump. In July of that year, two professional officers seconded to the National Security Council became whistleblowers, accusing Trump and asking him to investigate then Democratic presidential candidate Biden and his son Hunter. Subsequently, the Democratic-controlled House of Representatives quickly impeached Trump on charges such as abuse of power. Although the impeachment case did not pass the Senate in the end, Trump is a vindictive person, and he has always remembered the betrayal of the National Security Council. Trump simply does not trust the National Security Council. He believes that although this institution nominally provides advice and assistance to him on foreign policy and national security issues and helps coordinate the affairs of various government agencies, It actually acts in a duplicitous manner and holds back the America First policy, which is really worrying. 5 years later, Trump returned to the White House, and the time for reckoning has finally come. The first thing to do is to prevent this council from continuing to act in a duplicitous manner. The simplest way is to marginalize it. However, everything must be done for a good reason. Even Trump cannot arbitrarily take action against an important institution without an excuse. So in his first few months in office, he first used the pretext of improving government efficiency to preliminarily downsize personnel. After Walz's involvement in the US-China tariff war, Trump gained further justification to take action. However, can sidelining the National Security Council in Foreign Affairs solve the various problems exposed in the US policymaking process and once and for all avoid misjudgments toward China? The answer is likely no. This move has directly caused an imbalance in the structure of the US power core, breaking the traditional tripartite balance in diplomacy among the State Department, National Security Council, and Pentagon. Trump's White House purge reveals a stark reality. In this president's eyes, loyalty far outweighs professional competence. Most members of the fired China affairs team were experienced China experts who mastered Chinese and understood the complexities of China's political and economic operations. They are likely to be replaced by political appointees more willing to cater to Trump's views, leading to the hollowing out of US-China policy. When decisions are based solely on ideology and personal preferences rather than factual analysis, the likelihood of making major strategic errors increases significantly. US Secretary of Commerce Lutnick recently publicly admitted that Trump's tariff policies have caused painful impacts on the US economy, leading to a sharp decline in port cargo volumes and rising unemployment among blue-collar workers. More ironically, Trump's tough stance has instead prompted economies like the EU and ASEAN to strengthen cooperation with China, forming a de facto anti-Trump coalition. With the departure of the professional China affairs team, Trump's China policy will increasingly rely on a small circle of core advisors, with Rubio essentially becoming the absolute core of Trump's cabinet and holding unchallenged authority in formulating foreign policies. It can be foreseen that if Trump wants to continue engaging with China at the strategic level, he will have to rely on Rubio and his team, individuals known for their absolute loyalty to Trump but lacking practical experience in handling complex US-China relations. In this scenario, the risks of misjudgment and accidental escalation will significantly increase. For those familiar with Trump's governing style, this White House purge comes as no surprise. Shortly after returning to the White House in early 2025, Trump launched a cleanup 2.0 of the US judicial system, firing multiple prosecutors and FBI agents involved in investigating him. He has called these investigations political persecution and vowed to settle scores with the deep state forces opposing him. Trump operates with a unique political philosophy of grudges, dividing the world simplistically into friends and enemies, with all enemies destined for punishment. The China affairs team unfortunately fell into the latter category. The Trump administration is becoming an echo chamber where only one voice, Trump's own, dominates. This is highly dangerous for a superpower tasked with handling complex international relations. Trump's America First 2.0 policy is not only affecting US-China relations, but also reshaping the global landscape. On his first day in office, he announced the US withdrawal from the Paris Agreement and the World Health Organization, attempting to reduce space for cooperation with China by weakening multilateral mechanisms. Such unilateralism has drawn widespread criticism from the international community. UN Secretary-General Guterres has noted that trade wars have no winners and only exacerbate global economic uncertainty. Trump assumed the world would follow the US in confronting China, but he underestimated other nations' resolve to safeguard their own interests. His unilateralism is accelerating the formation of a multipolar world, with US influence steadily eroding in the process. China has demonstrated remarkable strategic patience and adaptability in this game. In the face of Trump's tariff bludgeon and unpredictable policy shifts, China has avoided falling into a tit-for-tat vicious cycle. Instead, it has gradually reduced its vulnerability to the US by diversifying international relations and developing independent innovation capabilities. In the era of globalization, competition is no longer a zero-sum game. Whoever can build a more inclusive cooperation system will win the future. Trump's purge may bring short-term political satisfaction, but it cannot alter this basic reality. As the fired National Security Council staff leave the White House, they will be replaced by an even more unpredictable Trump-era one where loyalty is the sole currency, and professional knowledge and strategic vision become dispensable luxuries. For the US and China, two nuclear powers and the world's two largest economies, the risks posed by this shift may exceed anyone's imagination. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Your support means a lot. See you next time.